right, we'd like to welcome you to the Friday main event Class 1A Region Preview Show. Lee, we're going to change the format a little this year. Normally we went straight through. We had a little commercial break, in between regions. But I think the game plan this year, we're going to go with the east side of the state, regions 1 through 4, in this particular video here. That'll give the listeners the opportunity to kind of split up the video. You're not committed to us for an entire hour. You can break it up, which is a good thing, I'd say. So we'll cover regions 1 through 4 in this video. The second series in the Class 1A will be regions 5 through 8. And then, of course, we'll do our top 10 and yet a third video. So we'll have 3 videos each class, this being Class 1A. And Class 1A this year, Lee, it seems to be top-heavy. There seems to be a lot of discussion. There's like 4 teams everybody's picking, but not much beyond that.
Yeah, I noticed that. Greenback, obviously, the usual suspects, I would think. But, every year there might be a team or two that surprise you.
Right. I think that what I'm hearing, we talked to a lot of people in the football. I think what we're hearing anyway, South Pittsburgh, Greenback on the east side seem to be the favorite teams heading into the season. And then you've got Lake County and Huntington on the other side.
Right.
So we're going to get heavy into regions 1 through 4 in this video here, Lee, and we're going to get things started in Region 1, a region which has 2 new coaches this year.
Well, bringing that up, Class 1A, I think, has 12 new coaches across the state this year, so there's a lot of movement. But, yes, you're right.
I think that's because the lower classifications, typically when a coach does well, he has an opportunity to move up to – so you see more turnover.
So.
You agree with that?
Yes, sir.
So, like I said, man, we got 2 new coaches in Region 4. Cloudland, one of the new coaches, Mike Lunsford, retires. Glenn White comes in. He was assistant last year. He had head coaching experience with 3 schools in the 90s, like Happy Valley, Unicoi County, and Gordonsville. He had head coaching experience at all those. Got a pretty good returning lineup, Lee. They got 7 starters on both sides of the ball. What's your thoughts on Cloudland?
I like the Highlanders to, take the region. Last year they won their 3 region games by a total of 40 average 47 points.
Wow.
Got up against Coalfield there in the second round and played them tight.
Right.
But anytime you got 7 on each side of the ball coming back in a 1A school, you got something to deal with.
Yeah, they really didn't, like you mentioned, have a lot of competition. They do have Tristan Lacey back, Gary Julian, offensive lineman. Of course, Lacey's a wide receiver. Now, Julian was a preseason All-State, Murphy Fair preseason All-State. Garrison Julian, another linebacker senior, really gifted football player. So a lot of talent back for Cloudland. Who do you think is going to be the toughest competition for those guys region-wise?
Well, probably Hancock County.
If anybody. It's a very weak region.
It is.
Like you said, 47-point margin of victory last year. Hancock County has got 6 starters back on both sides of the ball. Brandon Gibbs, 9-24 in his 3 years there at Hancock County. They were 3-8 last year, Lee. They were knocked out by Oliver Springs. As a matter of fact, I think Cloudland was the only Region 1 team for the last 2 or 3 years that was able to get a first-round win.
That's right.
But Oliver Springs shuts out Hancock County 39-0. With the 6 starters back on both sides of the ball, I mean, I think they would probably be the favorite again this year to get that second home playoff game. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, possible. But, Jellicoe's coming up there, too, in that Region 1A. Got a new head coach. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. Michael Crowley was out. Mm-hmm. They got Brandon Peels coming in. So I'm kind of interested to see if Jellicoe can make any kind of a turnaround.
Yeah, the odd thing about them, man, you look at their non-region schedule, Lee. They've got Williamsburg, Kentucky coming to them. Then they've got at McCreary, Kentucky, McCreary Central. And then they've got North Green, another region, non-region game, Cosby. And then they got Bray, Kentucky. So
right.
A lot of travel for this Jellicoe team. So we'll have to see how all that plays out. And, of course, we got Unica rounding out that region, 3-8 last year, 0-3 in the region. They did play in the Curator Bowl, 22-28 loss to Pickett County, not a perennial power. So no. I don't know that Unica gets much better. 7 starters back on offense, 6 on defense. Kobe Jones, the offensive lineman, one along with Blake Isaacs, wide receiver, a couple of returners for Unica. Any flipping in this region? How do you see this region playing out?
Well, like I said, the 2 and the 3. I'm interested to see how Coach Peel does.
All right.
It's a possibility, maybe the 2, which we got Hancock County at, and the 3 at Jellicoe. If Jellicoe gets on the roll and Coach Peel gets them fired up here in the off season, maybe you might see that switch. But as of right now, I say it'll probably play out just like it did last year.
Yeah, I think so. I've got it. Matter of fact, I've got the order of finish the same as last year. I got Hancock County 2, Jellicoe 3. I think Unica rounds it out. All in all, though, Lee, typically Region 1 pretty weak in Class 1A.
Right.
I think we'll see the same. I am curious to see how Glenn White does. He's taking over for a legend in Mike Lunsford. Be kind of curious to see if Mike Lunsford kind of rejoins his son over on that Hampton squad, possibly.
Probably.
That I could see that happening. But, I think that's the biggest question mark is how Coach White picks up on what Lunsford did there, tradition they have at Cloudland.
Right.
Moving on to Region 2, Lee, you got 7 teams in this region, 1 new head coach, and everybody's talking about Greenback. What's not to like? Greg Ryan, 4 years there, 51-6. He's been to 3 title games. He won 1. They were knocked out by Whitwell in the semifinal last year, 24-21. So they're on the verge of 4 straight trips to Cookeville. So what an excellent job Greg Ryan's done there at Greenback.
Man, that guy can coach. And, last year they won by an average of 36 points in the region. I think the only team that was within 28 was Oliver Springs. And I don't see any let up for Greenback, man. They are absolutely loaded for a 1A school with talent. Got some transfers in this year. Got a couple preseason All-Staters.
Darrell Bailey is a big offensive lineman. Number 30 recruit in the state. Lee, 6'6", 230. Everybody's talking about this kid. I think he's expected to be tough. And what about the transfer, man?
Carnes. Braden Carnes, quarterback. Yep, coming over from Maryville.
And we saw him last year, if you'll remember, in the semifinals against Oakland. I called that game on the radio. So, very talented quarterback.
Well, if I'm Coach Ryan, too, man, he's got Holden Willis out wide at a receiver, 6'4", 200 pounds, and 1A. I just think I'm throwing the ball.
Yeah.
Just rear back and let it go and let him go get it.
Rutgerson, another good, talented receiver. I mean, they're just eat up with talent. You got Trace Brown, the kid that transferred in from Seymour last year. They're loaded, man. They're definitely. Matter of fact, Lee, I don't want to get in our top 10, but they moved up a little in our top 10. I'm sure some people have already seen that based on the fact that Carnes came over.
Right.
I was kind of worried about being able to replace Mr. Football at quarterback, so I think they may have filled the shoes there when Carnes came over from Maryville. They have non-region games with Loudon. The game at Meigs County, Lee, I'm really anxious to hear how that one goes. I would love to attend that game.
Yeah, that'll test them.
It will. And Meigs County is a team we're expecting to do really well in 2A. And then, of course, they've got Oneida and Lenore City as another non-region team. Now, Coalfield, Lee, has kind of been a team that, contended with Greenback. They didn't play well against Greenback last year. Of course, they had coming off the loss of Parker McKinney, graduation to him.
Right.
They had a lot of inexperience in some key spots. But the Yellow Jackets bring 8 kids back on offense, 7 on defense. Keith Hendrick, very good coach, 145 and 65, in 95 and 43, I think, in 11 years there at Coalfield. Very good 1A coach.
I think so, and like you said, they got 8 and 7 coming back, and they're very senior heavy this year. Peyton McKinney, which is Parker's younger brother, will be back at wide receiver, and then they got Dylan Stewart, who's a preseason All-Stater on the O-line, D-line. Coach Henry, he's got his work cut out for him, but his one thing that's impressive too is his outer region schedule this year. He's playing at Stone Memorial and at Gordonsville, and that's going to test you some, see where you are, prepare you for the playoff time. But it's an uphill battle anytime you're dealing with Greenback.
Yeah, I agree. That Gordonsville trip, that will be interesting to see because that Gordonsville team over in Region 4, we're expecting to do real well this year. So, that'd be a really good non-region test, along with playing in a very tough region. A third team in this region, I think, Lee, that should be pretty good is Oliver Springs. Of course, they lost to Greenback 33-12 there in the second round last year. Larry Green, the head coach there, 21-24 in 4 years, but he's another coach. He's got a lot of returners back, 5 on offense, 6 on defense. I like the Bobcats. I think they're going to have another good season this year.
I do too. I expect them, to get through the first round of the playoffs. They'll probably get into the playoffs and get through that first round, and then they'll jump right back into their region again. That's tough,
Yeah.
Anytime you deal with that. But I like Blake Crass, senior quarterback. I got a senior running back in Boswell who put up some numbers last year. So, Oliver Springs, if they weren't in this region, would probably
contend
at any other region.
I agree.
They played Greenback probably, 10 points last year. So, so Larry Green's doing a good job. I think they're trying to get on track up there, but, man, it's such a tough region.
Yeah, you got to like having a senior quarterback with experience back. That's definitely a plus for the Bobcats, but they're going to have to work cut out, like you said. Tough region. Midway, the Green Wave, they've got 5 back on both sides of the ball. They got another. That's the team that has a new head coach.
That's right.
Ron Treadway. He was assistant coach at Kingston. Takes over for Ryan Minton, who's out there at Midway. The Green Wave 7-4 last year, 3-3 in region play. They were knocked out in the first round by a really solid Cloudland team. The only loss Region 2 suffered in the first round. I like Midway, Lee. I think they're a playoff team again this year.
I do too. I like them at the 4 spot, and they possibly could jump to the 3. We'll see. Anytime you get a new coach coming in, it may breathe some life into the program, or it could go the other way. It may take a minute or two for them to get set up. So
right.
Depends on how much change Coach Treadway's going to make, but I like them at the 4 spot.
Harriman, the Blue Devils, Travis Tapp, he's in his 15th year there at Harriman. He's 79 and 96 in those 15 years. Only got 4 starters back on both sides of the ball, Lee. Some tough games. They got Kingston on the road. They got Wartburg on the road. They got Monterey on the road. And then they have a home game against Rockwood. So some winnable games. I think Kingston, you'd have to write that one off. I don't see them contending with them. But, Taylor Braddock is back at wide receiver, Mason Coca, and then Bradley Frost at quarterback, the senior. So Harriman potentially, as you said, maybe contending for that 4th playoff spot. Sunbright, 1-8. They do have a lot of starters back, Lee, but when you're 1-8, is that a good thing?
Well, I think they're definitely going to improve their record because they got Red Bowling Springs and Pickett County or Red Bowling at home, and then they go to Pickett.
Unica.
That's right.
Another team.
One thing about Sunbright that, like you said, I do like is they got 8 returners on offense and 9 on defense. But if you look down the roster, got a lot of juniors, a lot of sophomores, and, those guys are getting some playing time. Right. So I expect them to be better this year.
Yeah, I'd agree. Oakdale is the last team in this region. J.R. Voiles is 32-62 in 9 years there. 1-9 last year. Lee didn't win a region game. 6 starters back on offense, 5 on defense. I don't really look to see them pull out of the cellar this year.
Well, the biggest thing for them is I'd be interested to find out if any of y'all are listening, to this show is how many players are they going to have this year? They had to forfeit 3 games last year because they didn't even have enough players to finish the season.
That's right. I'd forgotten about that, yeah.
If Coach Voiles can get players out, obviously I think he could improve on a 1-9 record.
Is that our buddy David Smith?
That sure is.
It is. That might be the problem right there. He's a guy we work with at Nissan. He's an alum there. 63, so he played many, many years ago.
Oh, yeah. I think they still had leather helmets.
Yeah, they probably did. David still tells stories about that. We get a kick out of him. A good friend of ours. But, yeah, I don't think David's Eagles improve any this year, Lee.
I think you're right.
Lee, let's move on down to Region 3, and Region 3 is a region of interest. South Pittsburgh, they lost the first game to Whitwell last year, 34-12, and then they came back. Of course, those teams smashed up in the quarterfinals, and I think it wound up going to overtime, didn't it, Lee?
2 overtimes.
34-28, double overtime. You're right. I think if there's one team that does not want to play South Pittsburgh this year, it's Whitwell, because I can tell you right now, Big Riders had a big circle on that Whitwell game from last year. Would you agree?
I would, and I tell you what, we rave about Coach Grider and his program, and if you look this year, he's got 7-7 coming back, and man, I'm gonna tell you, I think the difference maker this year for South Pitt is Ronto Tipton.
Oh, stud.
He had a super phenomenal year last year, but I think he's gotten bigger, faster, stronger in the off season. I know they've been working hard. And I think Ronto Tipton may get them over the top in this region and could very well put them in the finals.
One of the most impressive players we saw last year, Lee. We made the trip up to South Pittsburgh. We try to head up there for a game every year. A heck of a place to watch a game, man.
Unbelievable.
I love it. You drive down the street there in South Pittsburgh, and you get these championship banners lining the streets. It's awesome, man. It's a great fan base, a good place. They've done a lot of renovations there in the last couple of years. The press box is really nice. Our buddy, the Drunken Sailor, invited us up. That's Coach T handle, by the way. And speaking of Coach T, Lee, I failed to mention Coach T has jumped on board with us again this year. Jim Thompson, CoachT.com. Man, that is the place for high school football.
Oh, yeah.
We get a lot of information from a lot of friends we have on Coach T, provide a lot of information Lee and I discuss on our show. But CoachT.com, that's if you're not a member, you need to become a member. You need to become a Plus member because they've got the great thing about Coach T, Lee, is to gain Plus membership, it's donation-based now.
Right.
So you pay for your membership what it's worth to you. And for me personally, it's worth quite a bit. I mean, there's so many things that you can access on Coach T. It's not just football.
Yep.
It's baseball, it's softball, basketball, soccer, any sport, any high school sport is on Coach T, and the discussion and the information is equal to none. It's great. So I strongly suggest you check out CoachT.com if you have not yet, and become a Plus member. Lee and I are Plus members, and thankful to be Plus members.
That's exactly right.
That was my little commercial snap in there. How'd you like that, Coach T? Snuck that in on you. So, Lee, we're getting back to Region 3, and Whitwell lost a lot, man. I mean, they
did.
They won a state title last year, 15-0 undefeated season. How many programs can make that claim, That was
a big run for
It was
Mr. Bolden.
phenomenal, yeah. Coach Bolden has moved on to Waverly
Sure
Central.
has.
Travis Olinger he was a defensive line coach last year, Lee, former assistant at East Ridge for 12 years. Like you said, comes in for Coach Randall Bolden. What do you think about Whitwell? What's your expectations this year?
I think they're going to be very good. Again, I don't think you can go 15-0 and not be good because, like we talk about year in and year out, you make deep playoff runs, you get more experience.
Extra half of football, wasn't it?
That's right. Guys get a lot of more reps, and I think they'll be familiar. If Coach Olinger, I don't suspect him to do a whole lot of changing.
Right.
What they were doing last year at 1 ball games.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's right. They, they won the region games by an average of 44 points.
Crazy.
You look at the roster, they've got 3-4 preseason All-Staters, and Jacob Roberts, wide out, and then 2 O-line D linemen and then 1 D lineman. And all those guys are seniors, so I would suspect Whitwell to be very tough. I just think maybe this year Coach Grider has a little too much.
Yeah, I think so. And we mentioned the revenge factor when we began discussing this region. So, if there's points to be scored, they'll be scored this year.
Right.
No doubt. These teams don't like each other. It's not to the point of South Pittsburgh, Berrien County, but it's close. With Whitwell being a more legit team the last 2 years,
That's
I think
right.
that's heated that rivalry up. But, you mentioned Braden Sanders. I think he was injured in baseball. I was told he broke an arm. I don't know to the extent of what it was,
Right.
but apparently he's going to be back. He's going to be ready to go. Of course, that's the junior quarterback for South Pittsburgh. Now, they're a different team without him, Lee, so I think that's very important. He gets back to play.
I think so, too.
So, like you mentioned, they got Dakota Blevins, Cole Gamble, another offensive lineman, preseason All-State. Then you mentioned Ronto Tipton, the preseason All-State tailback. This kid, man, he can flat out run, Lee. If he gets an open field, he is gone.
Oh, he's a football player.
He's a football player like him. Of course, they got Sequatchie County, Grundy County, Marion County, Huntland, little Bob Robertson's team.
That's right.
Actually, they got Huntland at home, so Bob Robertson will be traveling up there. And he's familiar with South Pittsburgh because they go scrimmage South Pittsburgh at most spring.
Got Meggs, too.
Got Meggs. Now, that's the one. I was saving that one, Lee. Meggs has got South Pittsburgh Greenback.
They ain't ducking and diving either.
They ain't, are they, man? That's two. You're really going to see where those three programs are at after you see the results of those games.
I like it.
I do too.
I
do too. Don't run. And,
that's right.
Yeah, Coach Fitzgerald, he set this schedule up, I think, to go to a state title. He wants his team prepared when they go up against Trousdale County this year. If that happens again, and we kind of suspect it will, we'll get into that with 2A. But his team's going to be ready, no doubt. All right, Lee. So we talk about Whitwell. We talked about South Pittsburgh. Lookout Valley, the third place team. I think they'll finish third again this year. Got 4 starters back on both sides of the ball. Corey Talley, the running back, Travis Quells, Chris Dixon, Austin Ferguson. They've got some players. They got some players. Josh Payne, new head coach there. He takes over for David Dinger. What's your thoughts on Lookout Valley?
Same as I said before. It just depends on Coach Payne. He was the DC at Signal Mountain. Depends on what he brings to the table. One thing that's really going to hurt him is he's only got 4 returning starters on each side of the ball. So, he's doing some serious player assessment right now and trying to plug and play and get some guys in the right spots. And, sometimes in a 1A situation, man, you don't have a ton of numbers. It makes it difficult. But, he'll get it figured out. I suspect them to be the 3 or the 4 again.
Yeah, you mentioned Signal Mountain. They had a pretty good season last year, so I think Josh Payne will take that experience he gained there at Signal Mountain, and he'll set the stage for Lookout Valley. I think maybe not this year, but they will down the road be competitive. It's always going to be tough when you're in that region with South Pittsburgh. Sales Creek, another team in the region, and then we got, of course, they've got 5 starters back on offense, 7 on defense. Ethan Hyde is returning. Jacob, he's offensive lineman. And you look, a lot of the returners are linemen, Lee, which that's good. You like to see that. Braden Penny, quarterback, junior. But 2-8, 1-3. I don't think they're going to show as much improvement as Copper Basin. And I like Chad Grabowski. I think his son, Bryson, quarterback, junior. You got a quarterback's, you got a coach's son leading the team. That's a whole lot of extra time with that kid, and that's a lot of extra time to develop that offensive scheme. I think they leapfrog Sales Creek this year. I
think they get the 4 spot.
You think they get the 4 spot?
I do, because they got 9 returners on the offense and 10 on D. So I'm gonna put them in the 4.
I got them in the 4 as well. I think Coach Grabowski. Coach Grabowski. I think grabs the playoff spot this year, and They like you said, they'll get that last spot in Region 3. That's my thought as well. Lee, moving on to Region 4, Gordonsville. We really like Gordonsville. They won all their region games by an average of 19 points. Only beat Monterey by 2 points. That was kind of a head scratcher for me last year. I don't know exactly what happened in that game. And then Republic, which moved up, I think, to 3A this year, Lee.
That's right.
They only beat them by 6. So they had a couple of close games, but a lot of starters back this year.
They do, and I'll tell you what, man, Coach Clemens, this is his second year behind the helm. Last year, as a first-year coach, went 9-3, but now he's a Gordonsville alum, a Gordonsville guy, 19 years there as an assistant coach. I call him Scott, but Coach Clemens, he definitely knows what he's doing, and they played South Pitt to a 13-point game in the second round.
That's right.
One kid to look out for on that team, Leighton Cripps. He will absolutely level you. If he gets a shot, he's going to put it on you. Levi Croslin, a little sophomore kid that's pretty good they got down there. But, man, what I like about Gordonsville, when it comes playoff time, they're going to be tested. If you look at their schedule, they've got Watertown, Smith County, Trousdale County, Coalfield.
That's tough.
That's pretty tough. You'll be ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what you want.
And that's non-region schedule,
right.
On top of all the region games they've got. And I like that because I don't think Region 4 is the toughest region in the world, so I like the fact that Coach Clemens went out and lined up some pretty tough opponents outside the region. Better prepare them for the South Pittsburghs when they get to the postseason. But yeah, 6 starters back on offense, 7 on defense. They should take this region again, I would think. Probably
so.
heavy favorites. Tom Atkins, I've said this for years and years and years, one of the best coaches in the game. Unfortunately, up there at Cedar Hill, the Joe Burns Red Devils, they don't typically have a lot of talent there. I mean, they get all they can get out of what they got.
Yeah. That's what makes him so good.
Yes, exactly. I mean, he's one of those coaches, and I've said this before, and it's kind of a cliche, but he can take his kids and beat you, and he can take your kids and beat his. He's that type of coach.
Right.
5 starters back on both sides of the ball. Rudy Tucker, offensive lineman, and then they've got DB Blake Jernigan, Maxie Owens, a linebacker, and then they've got a quarterback, Cooper Richards. I think Joe Burns probably retains the number 2 spot.
Possible, yes, sir. I think you're right.
Monterey, the only team that gave Gordonsville a game last year, only 1 starter back on both sides of the ball. Lee, South Pittsburgh blew them up in the title or in the first round, 53-15.
Right.
Their non-region schedule not too bad. They got Sales Creek, Lookout Valley, Harriman, Jackson County, Bledsoe County. I don't know. I think maybe Clay County gets them this year for that 3rd spot.
I think so, too. I think Clay County may leapfrog over them to get the 3 spot. And the reason I say that is because Clay County's returning 8 on each side of the ball.
Right.
And like we always I've said 100 times already, 1A, that's big. And Jake Ashlock is an outstanding athlete. And, Coach Johnson took over for Coach Bates. Coach Bates, I think, went up to Macon County. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's correct.
As an assistant coach up there.
Right, under Coach Shoulders.
That's correct. And then, so when Coach Johnson took over, the big thing that Coach Bates had done is walk the halls and got athletes out.
He
got a lot of basketball kids and those kind of kids out. And I think Coach Johnson's doing the same. And then with those 8 and 8, I think he'll get the 3 spot.
And Dalton Gold, a junior preseason All-State on that Murphy Fair squad, he plays nose guard. So, he should have be considered a leader on that line. So I think that's always a good thing. Pickett County lead, typically not one of your better teams. They do return 7 starters on both sides of the ball. So I don't think it's anywhere for them to move up. Now, potentially, maybe with Monterey only having one starter back on both sides, maybe. I think that's the only possible shot they got at postseason play. They did beat Unica in that how you say that?
Character Bowl.
Character Bowl. It's not spelled like character. It's C-A-R-E-A.
Character.
Character. Works for me. They have it up. I think you have it at Knoxville Grace Christian, maybe. It's in Knoxville. They have it, and they usually teams that didn't make the playoffs, they have 3 or 4 games up there. I don't really know but anyway, it's not typically much competition, but they did win their game up there.
Right.
So who knows? Whatever. It's 7 kids back on both sides of the ball. They may scrape and pull a win out over a Monterey. But
scrape and claw.
Scrape and claw, and never know. Might happen.
Yep. Red Bull and Springs. I hope they're not getting into that 95-game losing streak again.
Yeah.
They went 0-9 last year.
Yeah, they did. And hate that for our buddy Joseph Atkins. His younger brother's
Bradley.
He's one of the key returners for that team.
Yes, sir.
Lee, RBS, I don't know. I don't know that they get a win this year. If you look at their non-region games, they've got Oakdale, they got Sunbright. Jackson County has not played very well. I think they get better this year. And then they got a couple of games in Kentucky. So, they may find a win in the non-region action. They may potentially get Pickett County, but I think if they do get a win, it's going to have to be non-region this year.
Maybe at Oakdale.
Possibility.
The biggest thing is
maybe Oakdale won't have enough players.
Well, there again, though, that's what I was going to say is,
that's terrible.
Red Bull and Springs and Oakdale both, they struggle to, a lot of
Put a
times
roster
last year
together.
Red Bull and Springs had 13 kids.
Right. Yeah,
that's an Iron Man football going on right there,
That
buddy.
is. You're right.
So,
All right, Lee, so that's going to end our video, our first series of videos here for Class 1A. We covered regions 1, 2, 3, and 4. And Lee, to recap, we like Cloudland in 1. We like Greenback 2.
Yes,
we like South Pittsburgh in 3. And we like Gordonsville in 4.
Yes, sir.
We in agreement on that?
Yes, sir.
All right, folks. Well, we hope you appreciate our rundown of Class 1A regions 1 through 4. Stay tuned. Click on the next video, and we'll cover regions 5 through 8 for you guys. I'm Mike Molder. He's Lee Teat. We are the Friday main event, and we appreciate you guys tuning in.